My name is David Clark. I'm 39 years old, and I used to believe that being a good provider was enough to keep a woman loyal. I was wrong. For 15 years, I've climbed the corporate ladder in logistics management. I've endured the endless conference calls that drag into evening hours, the red-eye flights to distribution centers across the country, and the countless nights in hotel rooms that all look the same after a while. I made these sacrifices gladly because they allowed me to give Hannah the life I never had growing up. We built our dream in the suburbs of Chicago, a 3-bedroom colonial with maple trees lining the driveway. Hannah left her marketing job 5 years into our marriage. "You make enough for both of us," she'd said, kissing me on the cheek. "I'll take care of everything else." And she did. While I managed supply chains, Hannah managed our life. A spotless home, dinner parties with neighbors, weekend getaways to Michigan wineries, and those late-night conversations in our kitchen where we'd share a bottle of Cabernet and laugh about nothing important until midnight. For years, I thought I was one of those rare men with an enviable marriage. I'd return from business trips to find Hannah waiting at the door, her arms open wide. Those homecoming embraces melted away every hour of travel fatigue. Her body would press against mine with an urgency that told me she'd missed me, really missed me, while I was gone. "Welcome home, stranger," she'd whisper, leading me upstairs before I could even set down my luggage. That changed about a month ago. The first time Hannah turned away from my touch, I didn't think much of it. "I'm just not in the mood tonight," she murmured, rolling to face the wall. Fair enough. Everyone has off days. The second time, I wondered if something was bothering her. "Is everything okay?" I asked, stroking her hair. "Just tired," she replied, though she'd spent the day at home while I'd been in meetings since 7 a.m. By the third rejection, a pattern was forming. Every advance I made was met with the same response. Not tonight, not now, maybe tomorrow. But tomorrow never came. The woman who once couldn't wait for me to get home now seemed relieved when I left for business trips. I found myself lying awake at night, watching Hannah sleep. In the blue darkness, I'd study the curve of her cheek, the flutter of her eyelashes, searching for the woman who used to hang on my every word when I returned home. I told myself it was just a phase, a rough patch that all marriages experience. Maybe she was depressed. Maybe the monotony of suburban life was getting to her. Maybe my frequent absences had finally taken their toll. Then came the trip to Seattle. As I packed my suitcase the night before, I noticed something strange. Hannah was humming. She hadn't hummed in months. She moved around our bedroom with a lightness I hadn't seen in weeks, sorting laundry with almost cheerful efficiency. "You seem in a good mood," I commented, zipping my toiletry bag. The humming stopped abruptly. Hannah's shoulders stiffened. "Do I?" she responded, her voice suddenly edged with defensiveness. "I'm just glad to get these chores done." But as I folded my dress shirts, I caught her checking her reflection in the mirror, a small smile playing at the corners of her mouth. She wasn't happy about the chores. She was happy about something else entirely, something that had nothing to do with me. For the first time in our marriage, Hannah seemed eager for me to leave. The progression was subtle at first, easy to dismiss if you weren't paying attention. Fortunately, or unfortunately, I'm trained to notice patterns. In corporate logistics, my job is to identify inefficiencies, spot breaks in the supply chain before they become catastrophic. I never expected to apply those same analytical skills to my marriage. But here we were, 1 month of steady decline. Every attempt at physical connection rebuffed with increasingly thin excuses. "I have a headache," she would sigh. Turning away, "I didn't sleep well last night," she'd explain, pulling the covers up. "I'm bloated from dinner," she'd complain. Creating distance. "Can we just cuddle instead?" she'd suggest, knowing what would follow. We never just cuddled. Hannah would position herself at the edge of the bed, creating a chasm between us that might as well have been the Grand Canyon. Meanwhile, other changes accumulated like warning signs on a highway. Hannah joined a gym, something she'd resisted for years despite my gentle encouragement. "I just want to feel good about myself again," she explained when I expressed surprise. A reasonable explanation, but it didn't account for the new underwear I discovered while doing laundry one weekend. Delicate, expensive pieces I'd never seen her wear. Then came the phone calls. Hannah had always been social, but suddenly her phone was buzzing constantly. She'd glance at the screen, excuse herself to the kitchen or bathroom, and return 15 minutes later with flushed cheeks. "Who was that?" I'd ask casually. "Oh, just Melissa," she'd say, referring to her sister who lived 4 states away, or an old college friend. "We're reconnecting." One evening, I walked into our home office and found Hannah rapidly closing her laptop. The guilty start she gave didn't match someone who was simply browsing online sales. "Sorry," she said with a forced laugh. "I was looking at stupid cat videos. Didn't want you to think I was wasting time." Hannah had never apologized for watching cat videos before. She used to call me over to watch them with her. The business calls home became torture. I'd phone from hotel rooms in Dallas or Phoenix, trying to maintain our connection across the miles. "How was your day?" I'd ask. "Fine, normal, nothing special," she would respond. Her voice increasingly clipped, distracted. "I miss you," I'd tell her, trying to recapture our old intimacy. "The dishwasher is making that noise again," she'd deflect. "Can you look at it when you get back?" Sometimes I'd hear things in the background that didn't make sense. Jazz music playing softly, though Hannah preferred pop. The dialogue from unfamiliar TV shows. Once I could have sworn I heard a male voice murmur something, followed by Hannah's sharp, "Shh! Is someone there with you?" I asked. "Just the TV," she answered quickly. Too quickly. The breaking point came when I was organizing receipts for my expense report. Mixed in with my business receipts was one I didn't recognize. Dinner for 2 at Vincenzo's, an upscale Italian restaurant downtown that charged $50 for pasta. The date corresponded with my last business trip to Boston. That night, I confronted her. "Did you go to Vincenzo's while I was away?" Hannah's eyes narrowed almost imperceptibly before she composed her features. "Oh, yeah. Melissa was in town. We had a sister's night." "Melissa was here?" "She didn't mention that when I spoke to her last week," I countered, watching her reaction. "It was last minute. She had a layover and called from the airport," she explained, her voice too casual. "And you took her to Vincenzo's?" "I thought she hated fancy restaurants," I pressed, not letting go. Hannah's face transformed then, anger replacing the careful neutrality. "What is this, an interrogation?" she snapped. "Since when do I need to report every meal I eat when you're not here?" Her defensiveness confirmed everything. The woman I'd trusted for 15 years was lying to my face and doing it badly. 3 days later, my phone rang as I was boarding a flight to Minneapolis. It was my client, apologizing profusely. A family emergency had forced him to cancel our meeting. Could we reschedule for next month? I stood in the jet bridge, other passengers flowing around me as I contemplated my options. I could extend my stay, try to schedule other meetings in the area. I could fly to another city where we had ongoing projects, or I could go home early and surprise my wife. For the first time in our marriage, Hannah wouldn't know when to expect me. I'd catch her completely off guard. Maybe seeing her natural reaction without the mask she'd been wearing lately would give me the answers I needed. I changed my ticket and boarded a flight home instead. As the plane descended toward Chicago, I rehearsed the surprise in my mind. I imagined walking through our front door, calling Hannah's name, seeing her face light up with genuine pleasure at my unexpected return. But the knot in my stomach told a different story. My gut, the same instinct that had saved countless business deals, was screaming that Hannah's expression would be anything but pleased when I walked through that door. The sedan wasn't supposed to be there. I sat in my car at the curb, engine off, staring at the unfamiliar dark blue Audi parked in our driveway. Not a neighbor's car, I knew all their vehicles by now. Not a service vehicle, no company logo on the side, no ladder rack on top. Just a sleek, expensive car that had no business being at my house on a Wednesday afternoon. My stomach clenched as though I'd swallowed broken glass. I didn't want to jump to conclusions. Maybe Hannah had a visitor, a friend, a relative, someone with a perfectly innocent reason to be there. But as I stared at that car, every instinct honed over years of business negotiations told me I was about to walk into something I couldn't unsee. I approached my own front door like a burglar, key trembling slightly in my hand. The house felt different the moment I stepped inside, charged with an unfamiliar energy. The air smelled different, a cologne I didn't recognize mingling with Hannah's perfume. Then I heard it. From upstairs came the unmistakable sounds of passion. Rhythmic movement, a headboard striking the wall in a steady cadence. Hannah's voice, higher, more urgent than I'd heard in months, crying out in pleasure. "Oh God, yes, right there." "Don't stop," she moaned, her voice carrying through the house. A male voice responding. Words indistinct, but tone unmistakable. I stood frozen in my own entryway, briefcase still in hand as the sounds of my wife's infidelity echoed through our home. 15 years of marriage reduced to this moment of absolute clarity. I had been replaced. Something cold and detached settled over me. The initial shock gave way to a strange calm, as though I were observing the situation from outside my body. This wasn't just a betrayal. It was a problem that required a solution. A situation that demanded control. I set down my briefcase silently and moved toward the stairs. Each step felt deliberate, my body operating with a mechanical precision while my mind raced ahead, plotting moves and counter-moves like a chess grandmaster. At the top of the stairs, I could see that our bedroom door wasn't fully closed. A sliver of afternoon light spilled into the hallway through the gap. The sounds were louder here, Hannah gasping, moaning, making noises she hadn't made with me in months. I approached the door and peered through the crack. There she was, my wife of 15 years, naked and writhing on sheets I'd helped her select at Macy's last spring. Her legs were wrapped around a man I didn't recognize, younger than me with the sculpted physique of someone who had more time for the gym than I did between business trips. His back was to me, but I could see his hands gripping Hannah's hips, pulling her toward him with each thrust. Hannah's eyes were closed, her head thrown back in abandon. She looked beautiful in her betrayal, more alive than she'd been with me recently. That hurt more than the physical act itself. I didn't make a sound, didn't burst through the door in a jealous rage, didn't announce my presence with shouted accusations. Instead, I backed away silently, my mind crystallizing around a single thought. I would control how this played out. Downstairs, I moved with purpose. First, I retrieved my phone from my pocket and opened the recording app. Whatever happened next, I would have evidence. Then I went to my home office and unlocked the bottom drawer of my desk. Inside was the Glock 19 I'd purchased after a break-in 2 streets over last year. I'd never fired it outside the shooting range, had never imagined using it in my own home. But power dynamics require leverage, and I needed to ensure complete compliance with what would come next. I positioned myself in the living room, directly in the sightline of anyone coming down the stairs. The gun rested across my lap, not pointed but visible. I started the recording on my phone and waited. Time stretched like taffy as I listened to them finish. Their passion subsided into murmurs and lazy laughter. The shower ran briefly. Dresser drawers opened and closed. Normal domestic sounds that didn't belong to this man in my house? When did you say he's coming back? The male voice asked. Clearer now, casual and unconcerned. Not until tomorrow night, Hannah answered, her voice light and carefree. His flight gets in around 8, so we have the whole place to ourselves tonight too? He questioned, anticipation evident in his tone, making my fingers tighten around the gun. We have all the time in the world, Hannah assured him with a laugh, that specific laugh that used to be reserved for me, as it floated down the stairs. Footsteps approached the top of the staircase. I adjusted my position slightly, ensuring the recording was still running, and prepared to show them exactly how wrong they were. They were halfway down the stairs when they saw me. Hannah froze first, one hand still on the banister, her face draining of color so rapidly I thought she might faint. The man behind her, taller than me, wearing an expensive watch and a smug expression that vanished the instant he registered my presence, bumped into her, not understanding why she'd stopped. Babe, what? He began, then followed her gaze to where I sat. The gun resting across my lap, my phone recording on the side table. For 3 heartbeats, nobody moved. The only sound was the faint ticking of the grandfather clock Hannah had insisted we buy at an antique store in Michigan last year. Sit down, I commanded, my voice steady, colder than I'd ever heard it. I gestured to the sofa across from my chair. Hannah's mouth opened and closed, no sound emerging. The man found his voice first. Look, man, I don't know who, he started, his tone both defensive and uncertain. Shut up, I cut him off without raising my voice. You'll speak when I ask you to speak. Both of you sit down, now! They obeyed immediately, moving to the sofa like sleepwalkers. Hannah's eyes never left the gun. Her lover kept glancing between me and the front door, calculating his chances. I shifted slightly, making sure he understood that any sudden movements would end badly. David, Hannah finally whispered. We need to talk about this. We absolutely do, I agreed, nodding toward my phone. And we're going to record the conversation for posterity. I want to make sure I remember every detail correctly. The lover, still nameless to me, tried again. Listen, this isn't what it looks, he attempted to explain. His voice strained. I lifted the gun from my lap, not pointing it at him, just holding it vertically so the barrel caught the afternoon light streaming through our living room windows. I said, "Shut up," I warned him coolly. "When I want to hear from you, I'll let you know." He sank back into the sofa, a vein pulsing visibly in his forehead. I turned my attention to Hannah, studying her as though she were a stranger. In many ways, she was. The woman I'd married would never have done this. Or perhaps she would, and I simply hadn't known her at all. "How long?" I asked. Hannah's eyes darted to her lover, then back to me. "David, please," she begged, her voice trembling. "How long?" I repeated, each word precise, final. She swallowed hard. 8 months, she admitted quietly. The timeline hit me like a physical blow. 8 months. While I was earning 6 figures to maintain our lifestyle, while I was sending her flowers from business trips, while I was calling home every night to tell her I missed her, she'd been betraying me for 8 months. Every time I traveled for business? I questioned, keeping my voice steady despite the rage building inside me. A slight nod. Eyes downcast. "Look at me when you answer," I demanded, my tone leaving no room for defiance. She raised her eyes, tears spilling over. "Yes, most of the time," she confessed, her voice barely audible. "Where did you meet him?" I continued, methodically extracting the truth. "At Starbucks downtown. I was getting coffee after yoga class," she explained, each word seeming to pain her. "And you just decided to f*** a stranger you met at Starbucks?" I challenged, my voice remaining level, but the crude language made her flinch. "It wasn't like that," she protested weakly. "We talked first. For weeks. So you had an emotional affair before you had a physical one. That's much better," I remarked, sarcasm dripping from my words. The lover shifted uncomfortably. "Look, I didn't know she was married at first," he interjected, attempting to defend himself. I turned to him, my gaze flat. "What's your name?" I demanded. He hesitated, clearly reluctant to identify himself. "Your name," I repeated. "Now." "Michael. Michael Brennan," he finally answered, resignation in his tone. "Well, Michael Brennan, I don't particularly care what you did or didn't know," I informed him coldly. "The fact that you're in my house, in my bed, with my wife, tells me everything about your character that I need to know." Michael straightened, some misplaced sense of dignity apparently wounded. "I think I should go," he announced, making a move to stand. "You'll go when I say you can go," I countered, gesturing with the gun again. "Right now, we're having a conversation about consequences." Fear flickered across his face. "You're not going to—" he started, eyeing the weapon nervously. "Shoot you?" I finished for him. "That depends entirely on how the next few minutes go. I'm not a violent man by nature, Michael. I'm a businessman. I believe in fair exchanges." I turned back to Hannah, whose mascara was creating dark rivulets down her cheeks. "How many times has he been in our house?" I asked, continuing my interrogation. "I don't know. Maybe 20? She estimated, her voice small. "In our bed?" I pressed a barely perceptible nod. "I want to hear you say it," I insisted. "Yes," she whispered. "In our bed." "And when I called from business trips?" "Where was he?" I continued, needing to understand the full extent of their deception. Hannah's silence was answer enough. "So while I was calling to tell you I missed you, he was right there beside you? Maybe you even put me on speaker so you could both laugh about it afterward?" I suggested, the thought turning my stomach. "No," Hannah denied quickly. "It wasn't like that. You never what?" I interrupted. "Disrespected me? Betrayed me? Lied to my face for 8 months? Because from where I'm sitting, you did all of those things and more." I turned my attention back to Michael, who was perspiring visibly now, eyes fixed on the gun in my hand. "You've been enjoying my hospitality for quite some time, Michael," I observed coolly. "Sleeping in my bed, showering in my bathroom, and my wife while I paid the mortgage. That's quite a service you've been receiving." "I didn't think of it that way," he muttered, avoiding my gaze. "Of course you didn't," I replied. "But now it's time to pay the bill." His eyes widened. "What do you mean?" he asked, alarm evident in his voice. I smiled thinly. I mean that nothing in this world is free. You've been using my property for your pleasure. Now you're going to compensate me for it. I set the gun down carefully on the side table, still within easy reach, and picked up my phone instead. Open your banking app, I instructed. You can't be serious, Michael protested. But his voice lacked conviction. I picked up the gun again. Oh, I'm extremely serious, I assured him. Open the app. With trembling fingers, Michael pulled out his phone and opened his banking application. I want $50,000 transferred to my account, I stated flatly. Consider it payment for services rendered. Michael blanched. 50,000? That's insane. I don't, he stammered. Clearly shocked by the demand. You drive an Audi, wear a Rolex, and have been comfortable enough to take my wife to Vincenzo's, I interrupted, laying out the evidence of his financial comfort. You have the money, and you're going to transfer it right now, or I'll ensure that everyone in your life knows exactly what kind of man you are. That's blackmail, he protested weakly. No, Michael, it's restitution, I corrected him. And it's a bargain compared to what a divorce would cost me if I hadn't caught you. I nodded toward my phone. I have Hannah's confession recorded. I have you in my house. I have everything I need to destroy both of you socially and professionally. So you can either transfer the money and walk out of here with some dignity intact, or you can test how far I'm willing to go. The room fell silent except for the ticking clock. Hannah stared at the floor, shoulders slumped in defeat. Michael looked from me to the gun to Hannah, searching for an ally or escape route and finding neither. Finally, he sighed. Fine, what's your account information? He conceded, resignation evident in his posture. I recited my details, watching as he input the transfer. When he showed me the confirmation screen, I nodded in satisfaction. Wise choice, I acknowledged. Can I go now? He asked, standing cautiously, eyes still on the gun. Almost, I replied. There's just one more thing. I moved faster than either of them expected. My fist connected with Michael's nose with a sickening crunch. Blood sprayed across his expensive shirt as he stumbled backward, hands flying to his face. That's for touching my wife, I explained calmly. Before he could recover, I drove my knee into his stomach, doubling him over. A swift kick to his ribs sent him to the floor, gasping. And that's for doing it in my bed, I added, standing over him. Michael crawled toward the door, leaving a trail of blood droplets on our cream-colored carpet. Hannah made a move to help him, but my glare froze her in place. Let him go, I told her. Your boyfriend just paid $50,000 to learn a valuable lesson about respecting other men's marriages. I'd say he got off cheap. When the front door slammed behind Michael's retreating form, I turned my attention fully to Hannah. She was shaking now, mascara-streaked tears continuing to fall. David, please, she sobbed. We can work through this. We can get counseling. I made a terrible mistake, but I still love you. Love, I repeated, tasting the word like something rotten. 15 years together, and this is how you show love? I never meant to hurt you, she whispered, her eyes pleading. And yet you did. Deliberately and repeatedly for 8 months, I reminded her coldly. I picked up my phone, stopping the recording and saving it. Here's what happens next, Hannah. I'm calling my lawyer tonight. By morning, I'll have divorce papers drawn up. You'll sign them without contest, making no claims on my assets. You'll leave this house with whatever you brought into our marriage and nothing more. And if I don't agree, she challenged, a hint of defiance returning to her voice. I held up my phone. Then this recording goes to your parents, your friends, your yoga class, everyone on your Facebook and Instagram. Everyone will know exactly what kind of woman you are. Hannah's sob caught in her throat. You wouldn't, she gasped, horror in her eyes. 8 months ago, I wouldn't have, I acknowledged. But you've taught me so much about betrayal, Hannah. I'm a quick study. By dawn, the divorce papers were delivered by courier. Hannah signed them without resistance, her hands shaking but her signature clear. As she packed her clothes and personal items, I sat in the kitchen drinking coffee, watching the sunrise through windows that now belonged entirely to me. I spent 15 years providing for her, asking only for loyalty in return. When that contract was broken, I collected what I was owed with interest. 3 months have passed since I watched Hannah drive away from our house, my house now, with just 2 suitcases and a box of personal items. The divorce was finalized in record time, her signature on the uncontested agreement ensuring that my assets remained protected. She didn't fight for the house, the investments, or even alimony. The recording on my phone was leverage enough to secure her complete cooperation. She moved back to Ohio, to her parents' split-level ranch house in the same neighborhood where she grew up. I heard through mutual friends that she claimed the marriage had run its course and we had grown apart, the standard euphemisms people use when they don't want to admit the ugly truth. Made sure her parents knew that truth. A copy of the recording, sent via email with a brief factual note explaining what their daughter had done. I didn't do it out of spite, but out of a sense that justice required full disclosure. Hannah shouldn't be allowed to rewrite our history, to cast herself as the victim of a failed marriage rather than its saboteur. Her father called me once, his voice heavy with disappointment, not in me, but in her. "We didn't raise her to be this way," he admitted before hanging up. That was the only contact I've had with her family since. Michael Brennan disappeared completely after our confrontation. No police report was filed. Pressing charges would have meant exposing the affair and explaining why he was in my house in the first place. The $50,000 sits in a separate account, untouched. I don't need his money. But taking it was never about financial gain. It was about extracting a cost for his actions, ensuring he felt the sting of consequences. Word travels quickly in suburban circles. Hannah's reputation unraveled as whispers spread from neighbor to neighbor. The women who once invited her to book clubs and charity luncheons now cross the street to avoid awkward encounters with me. I've become an object of pity in some eyes, grudging respect in others. The man who discovered his wife's betrayal and handled it with cold precision rather than messy emotion. The house feels different without Hannah. Larger, emptier, but also cleaner somehow. I've replaced the carpet where Michael bled, bought a new mattress and bedding, rearranged the furniture to erase any ghost of their presence. Some nights I sit in the silence with a glass of bourbon, not mourning what I've lost, but contemplating what I've gained, clarity, self-respect, and a new understanding of human nature. I've started dating again cautiously. Women seem drawn to my story, though I share it sparingly, and only when asked directly why my marriage ended. I'm selective now, watchful for signs of character rather than just attraction. Trust, once broken, is not easily rebuilt. My colleagues have noticed a change in me, a harder edge in negotiations, a more calculating approach to business decisions. The man who left for that fateful business trip 9 months ago was a different person, softer, more trusting, less aware of how quickly everything you've built can be undermined from within. That man died when he climbed those stairs and saw his wife in another man's arms. In his place stands someone new, a man who understands that being a provider isn't enough. Respect must be taken by force and maintained through fear. Hannah taught me that loyalty cannot be purchased with comfort and security alone. It's a harsh lesson, but a necessary one. My assets stayed protected. My name stayed clean. And Hannah, she lost everything. Her marriage, her reputation, and her safety net. Some men are destroyed by betrayal. Others use it as an education in human nature. I graduated with honors. And that's the end of today's story. If you enjoyed it, please give this video a thumbs up and drop a comment below. Your support helps the algorithm push my content further. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It really helps me keep creating more stories for you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.